Okay, we're going to be working in section 3.1, and this is on decimals. So chapter 1 was on whole numbers, chapter 2 was fractions, and now chapter 3 is on decimals. And so the first part is just like the other, where we are going to go from words to numbers. And I want to remind you that the word "and" is the only time that you're going to put a decimal point. Oh, I should tell you, the section begins on page 175, but the exercises are actually on page 183. So I'll give you a minute to see if you can get over to page 183. Remember, you can always pause the video if I go too fast for you. So again, "and" is going to tell us where to put the decimal place. So we've got 17, and then the decimal place. And then we need to look at the very end. There's not supposed to be a space right there. I don't know why I wrote it like that. 10 thousandths. So if you look at that chart that I gave you, 10 thousandths has 4 decimal places. So I need to make the number 7,178 fit in those 4 decimal places, which does use up all of them, and I don't have to insert any zeros. Sometimes you have to put a 0 here if there are not enough numbers to fill in the spaces. Okay, so that was number 1. We're just going from words to numbers. So this one says 1 and, so remember that's where my decimal point is. So 1 decimal, and this is thousandths. Thousandths has 3 decimal places, so I need to make 257 fit in those, and that would look like that. Alright, the second part is writing in fraction notation, and what you're going to do here is you're going to move the decimal all the way to the right, and ever how many places you move it, that's the clue to how many zeros are in the denominator. So if you move it 1, you need 10. If you move it 2 places, it needs to be hundreds. If you move it 3 places, it needs to be thousands. The number of places that you move it indicates the number of zeros in the power of 10. And the denominators are going to be powers of 10. 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, like that. So number 17, again, is just 1 place. So we do this and put it over 10. Let me look at another one that's a little different. Let's look at number 19. The number that we're given is 13 100 thousandths, because that many decimal places is 100 thousandths. So I want my decimal to go all the way to the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tells me that my power of 10 is going to need 5 zeros, which is the 100,000. So that's how you would write that one. Let's look at number 14. It has that. So I would need to go 1, 2, 3. That tells me I need 3 zeros in my denominator. So that's how you go from decimal to a fraction. Now we're going to go the other way. We're going to go from the fraction to a decimal. This says it's 10, that means I need one number after the decimal. And so there's my 8. Or you can say I move the decimal one place to the left if you want to use the reverse of that. So 100 means I'm going to need two numbers to the right of the decimal, or I can do the reverse of what I was doing up here and think 2 zeros means go 2 to the left. Makes it look like that. So when you have a whole number and a fraction, you put the whole number, then your decimal, and this means 2 places to the left because of the 2 zeros. So it looks like that. All right, the next one we're going to look at is number 39. So I've got my whole number 2, then my decimal, and since there's 4 zeros, I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's my number. Okay. Now, part C is comparing numbers, and the key here is that they have to have the same number of decimal places. So this one has 4, this one has 3. Well, you can always make additional decimal places by adding zeros to the end. So now I'm comparing that. So I have 9, let's count it, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So 9 10,000ths compared to 10 10,000ths. So this is my larger number. The next one we're looking at is number 47. Well, you look at the whole numbers first. And if a whole number is larger, then it doesn't matter what the decimal part is. So this is definitely the larger one just by virtue of the whole number part. On number 51, we're going to add a 0 here so that we're comparing like decimal places. So 4, 3, 2, this one's got a 0, this one's got a 5, so this one is the larger one. So the key to doing this is to make them have the same number of decimal places, and then you're okay with that. Alright, now we're going to talk about rounding, and in this first section, section D, first group of problems, we're rounding to the nearest tenth. This is on page 185. If you want to see it in the book, page 185. So what you need to do is to determine which number is in the tenths position and draw a line right after that. This 1 is in the tenths. So you look at this one. This controls what happens to this one. If this one is less than 5, this one stays the same. If this one's 5 or more, this one goes up 1. Well, certainly 1 is less than 5, so you just disregard that, and there's your answer, rounded to the nearest tenth. Same directions, rounding to the nearest tenth. So I draw my line after the tenths place, and all I look at is this single digit right here, the 4. Anything that comes after that doesn't matter to me for what I'm doing in this group. The 4 is less than 5, that means 7 doesn't change, and anything that's this direction from the line is going to remain the same as well. All right, we're moving on to number 61. I'm identifying which number is in the tens place. I look only at this number to decide, does it stay an 8 or go up 1 to become a 9? Well, this is more than 5, so that means this is going up 1 to become 0.9. Now, this one's a little tricky here on number 65, because when I identify my number that's in the tens position, which is this 9 tells me it needs to go up 1. Well, you can't make 9 go up 1 and fit it in one space. So when it becomes 10, it's going to look like that. So your answer is going to be 1.0. Okay. Those would be the answers rounded to the nearest tenth. I just realized that the actual directions for starting with number 61 was to round to the nearest hundredth, but that's okay. We can still look at rounding different ways. It won't matter. So now we identify the number that's in the hundredths place. Its partner is less than 5, so all of this stays the same. So this is this number rounded to the nearest hundredth. So that would have been rounded to the nearest tenth. This is rounded to the nearest hundredth. All right, so now in number 65, the directions were also to round to the nearest hundredth. So I draw my line right after the hundredths. And again, like happened over here, this means it's not got to go up 1. But the difference in the way you write it is that when this makes 99 go up 1, it becomes 100. So you write it with the 2 zeros. That indicates that you did round it to the nearest hundredth because it's got 2 numbers after the decimal. This indicates I rounded it to the nearest tenth because it's got only the 1 number after the decimal. All right, this one, the directions are to round to the nearest thousandth. So I draw my line after the thousandths place. This is more than 5. That means this is going to go up 1. So it's going to be 0.325. Then number 71 is also to the nearest thousandth. 4 is less than 5. So it just stays as it was, like that. Okay, number 77, and this group right here has the same number rounded to different places. Well, let me get the paper where you can see it. On number 77, we were supposed to take this number and round to the nearest 100. Now notice that it's 100, not hundredths with a TH. It's hundreds. So my number that's in the hundreds position is that 8. The 0 tells me it doesn't change, and so to the nearest 100, it's that. When you round to a whole number place, you lose all the decimal positions. Number 78 is the same exact number, but this time rounded to the nearest tenth. So I identify what's in the tenths place, and this partner number tells me whether it stays a 5 or changes to a 6. And since this is more than 5, this is going to go up 1. And you have just one number after the decimal because you were rounding to the nearest tenth. Number 79 is the same number, but this time we're rounding to the thousandth with the TH. So that we have to mark the thousandths place. This says it doesn't change. So there's my number to the thousands. Number 82 is the same number, but this time it says to the nearest 10, not tenths, but just 10. So identify what number's in the tens place, which is the 0. The 9 tells me it needs to go up, so that becomes a 1. So you make that 810 instead of 809, rounded to the nearest 10. Then number 83, we're going to take this number and round to the nearest 10,000. So that's tenths, hundreds, thousandths, 10,000ths is right there. The 9 tells me this needs to go up 1. So there's my number to the nearest 10,000th. And then finally, number 87, we're supposed to round it to the nearest 1. The 1's place. Well, that's the 4. This is 5 or more. So that tells me it needs to go up 1. So that 4, because of this, becomes a 5. All right, that's the end of the instruction for 3.1. So you should be ready to do the homework now on it. And I will get you a video made for 3.2 shortly.